Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world joining us. Thank you so much. We have 28 shows a week now, and that's because of you. We appreciate your loyalty, and we appreciate you bringing your stories here or our platform. We are here at USA Global TV and Radio. I am the president and founder, Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is the Corner Bookstore. And my wonderful friend and co-host, DIANN BOEHM, is traveling, so she will not be joining us today. But we have a special show for you. An outstanding guest is waiting backstage. She's joining us from LA, and she has won so many awards. She has done so much in the area of creativity. She is a #1 best-selling author. And again, the number of awards that she has won continues to increase. Let's bring her here. Let's welcome Jennifer Lieberman. Hi.
Hi, Dr. JACALYN. Oh, that was such a lovely intro. I always need to pinch myself when I hear it because it's been such a long journey. And it's like unbelievable that I made it this far without giving up, because I gave up so many times.
Oh my goodness, there's so much I want to talk to you about. So first of all, congratulations on all of your success in so many different areas. And I love the fact that you were just so transparent and shared that it hasn't always been easy. Somebody didn't just walk up to you and go, hey, here's an award for you. You did nothing to deserve it, but we want to give it to you. So we're going to talk about a number of topics today that have to do with your career and also with mental health. So I'm going to spotlight you, and why don't you just start off wherever you feel it's important for our audience to know about your story.
Okay, well, I'm an actor who started writing and producing to give myself work. This actually ties into mental health as well. I don't live in LA anymore. I'm from Toronto, and the pandemic took me back to Toronto, which is where I'm based, but I'm currently here writing a new project with a new partner. So I'm here for a couple of weeks, which is exciting. But when I moved to LA about a decade ago, I spent a couple years just spinning my wheels, trying to find an opportunity, trying to get a foot in the door, trying to get someone to pick me for an acting role or pick my script to get made. And not only was it exhausted and frustrating, the amount of rejection or just blatant people ignoring me, it just didn't bode well for my mental health on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't make you feel very good about yourself. So about 1.5 years into living here, I did a creative workshop, not an acting or writing workshop, but just a workshop about creativity. And there were a lot of people from all different fields and walks of life there. And I met a woman whose husband actually owned an agency in LA. And she suggested I write myself a vehicle, like a one-woman show, to showcase both my writing and my acting ability. And I had produced a few one-woman shows for friends at that point in time. I had run a little theater company in the East Village in New York. And I helped facilitate a few of these one-woman shows. And I remember when I was helping these women, I was just like, oh, I'd never be able to do that. I'm a good actress, but I'm not that good. I can't be on stage 1.5 hours. I can't play all these characters at once. But she planted the seed in my head. She's like, well, if you really want to get noticed, this is something you will do. And I was like, well, I really do want to get noticed. And if this is what I have to do, if this is what it's going to take, then I just have to muster up the courage and the creativity to push myself to do something I've never done before, and that I didn't even think I was good enough to do, and let the chips fall where they may. So that's kind of how this journey began, I wrote myself a one-woman show. She was gracious enough to meet with me and kind of brainstorm some ideas with me. And that one-woman show proved to be the biggest game changer of my life. I workshopped the show in LA. I joke, like the first workshop, like in La La Land with Emma Stone, nobody really came. But I realized while working on it, I was so fulfilled creatively. I felt so confident about myself. I didn't care who was ignoring me. I didn't care who wasn't picking me, because pushing myself to write this piece and coming up with all these characters that I was actually really good at, playing multiple characters, engaging an audience for an hour and a half, I proved to myself that I had what it took to be in this industry and that I was going to find my place no matter what. And the show went on to a festival in New York. I won the Audience Choice Award. And that's when I decided to start a little consulting business called Make Your Own Break, because I realized I could help other frustrated and out of work creatives, whether they were actors or writers, find a vehicle for themselves to kind of do the same thing. And that's kind of, that was the jumping off point for me.
What a great backstory you have. Thank you for sharing that. Just to give some perspective to our audience, when we see a globally known celebrity, okay, how many other people are there vying for positions like that that never get noticed, that, that nobody knows who they are, but yet they're putting in the work?
So I'm a Screen Actors Guild member. That's the union for professional actors. At any given point in time, over 90% of the union members are out of work, and only 1% are actually known names. So for every production where there's one big star, there's probably, maybe 5 to 10 people that have notable roles, and then maybe another 10 people that have just like little bit roles, and then maybe 50 to 100 people that are just the people walking by on the street, walking their dog, or sitting in the restaurant and you see the back of their head. All those people are most likely in the union, but the number of them that actually make a living in that field is very, very, very small.
That is fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I had no idea about those numbers. So what is it then that, like in your case, you decided, I'm not going to be waiting around for the call to come, for the door, the email, whatever it is. I'm going to make my own way. Other people wait, and maybe the break comes or maybe it doesn't, but it must have a significant impact on mental health.
Yes, it does. Because when we don't feel good about ourselves, when our self-esteem, and a lot of creatives, our self-esteem is kind of tied to our work, whether you're a writer, a painter, a musician, it's part of our identity. It's not like a regular job, because a lot of us do this for years, even decades, without having like the financial success that a normal person would need to stay and go to work every day. So it really is part of our identity. And that struggle does take a toll on mental health. And a lot of people, it's not unknown that there are a lot of people in Hollywood or in the entertainment business that have drug problems, alcohol problems, things like that. And that doesn't even matter whether you're at the top of the spectrum or the bottom. It's a difficult industry, even when you're the most famous person in the world. For example, somebody I know met Jerry Seinfeld, and he didn't really want to sit and talk and engage with this person, and just kind of like, hi, and walk by. And my brother's like, yeah, he sounds like kind of like a jerk. And I said to my brother, if you were Jerry Seinfeld and you stopped and had a pleasant conversation with every single person in the world who stopped you and tried to have a pleasant conversation, you would not have a minute of your life to yourself. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. So like whether you're at the top or at the bottom, it's not an easy life.
Wow, that really puts it in perspective. Thank you. I want to go back to your solo person show, okay? And I'd love for you to share the title with our audience and what was the whole concept behind it, number one, and then number two, how did you feel doing it by yourself without having other people there to go, hey, yes, way to go?
Yes. So the title was called Year of the Slut, and it was, I kind of had the title first and I built the show around the title. I'm good with coming up with like a catchy, grabbing title. I remember when I was studying philosophy in university in Toronto, one of our professors would always say when we were presenting, you know, an assignment, like, don't waste your title, don't waste your title. The title's important. And that always stuck with me. And when I was brainstorming with this woman who encouraged me to do the show, I came up with a few different concepts. And she's like, oh, no, that's too artsy. You're not in New York. You need something commercial. You're in LA. You need something that's going to grab people's attention and get them out of their house into the theater. So basically, I had this idea of a coming of age story about a young woman, loosely based on me, who saved herself for love and thought that she found the one that she was going to marry. And then after several years of that relationship, it fell apart and she had to navigate through the New York dating scene. But she was uneasy with her sexuality, sexual desires, with hookup culture, things like that, because of all the things that had been ingrained in her as a young woman. And I think all young women are kind of told the same thing of, you know, that sex is bad. And yes, we do have repercussions that men don't have in terms of, you know, getting pregnant, and we're much more susceptible to STDs and things like that. But once we get into our 20s, nobody ever revisits the conversation about having sexual desires being a normal part of being a healthy human being. And I compare it to if there was a male in his early 20s who had erectile dysfunction, that would be a major medical issue. That would be an issue that doctors would have to take a look at, and they would do tests and they would try and find out what is going on with this person. But as women, nobody has that conversation with us and lets us know that this is normal, it's healthy, it's natural, and that we don't have to feel so shameful about it. And that's basically what the story is. It's a outrageous adventure wrapped up in a sex positive feminist story.
I love it. I love it. That's just incredible and a story that needed to be told. What did you learn about yourself through the journey of doing this solo performance?
Yes, actually, I didn't touch on the actual performance. So I learned that, like I said a little while ago, that I was better than I thought I was. And I think that's often true in life until we do something that we never thought we would. We don't really know what we've got inside of us. And so many of us, myself included, we're much better at talking ourselves out of things than talking ourselves into things. And I just learned such a huge lesson about letting myself do things that I think I might fail at, because you might surprise yourself and actually succeed. But the one woman show, after a while, I didn't enjoy it because I had done so much theater, and part of the rush of doing theater is having a whole cast and a crew to feed off of, and having those inside jokes and making friends that are lifelong friends. Even if you don't see them for 10 years, you run into them and it's like they're a long lost family member. So I felt that was lacking. Sure, I had a director and I had someone in the lighting booth and, you know, someone to sell tickets at the front, but that's not the same as those bonding experiences and then being able to feed off of other people's energy on stage and in the theater.
Yes, thank you so much. That really is helpful, just imagining what you were feeling and experiencing. So, my next question for you is, you're now helping other people. You have the experience as a creative. And what are you finding? What are people sharing with you about areas where they feel stuck and they need help?
Well, like I said, so many of us, we are brilliant at talking ourselves out of ideas. And a lot of people somehow convince themselves that it's too much work, or it's not, it's not something for them to create their own project or spearhead their own project. And it's just a lot of insecurity. And I think all of us are insecure. And there's something validating about somebody else picking you, and then you feel like, oh, I'm worthy now because somebody bigger than me is picking me and they're paying me. But what a lot of people don't realize is, in any industry, it's the self-starters that are the ones who eventually get picked. It's the philosophy of work begets work. If you're a struggling artist, it doesn't matter what field that you're in. If you're just kind of going to your side hustle and letting that kind of take over your life, and you haven't done anything in 2 years or 5 years, when you do have that opportunity to go through that bigger door, what do you have to show for what you were doing in the meantime? And I think that's a really kind of telling statement about somebody's character. And people want to work with people who are busy and who have the courage to take the reins.
Yes, and who better to help them than you with all of your experience? And of course, you've done more than acting and writing. You're also producing and directing as well, correct?
Yes, yes, that's correct. So I started producing in New York. I was with a little theater company, and the producer went on to another opportunity. And I was 22. I was very young, and I was asked to step up as producer. And I really wasn't interested at all because I just wanted to be the actor. And I was asked several times and they wore me down. And finally, I was like, okay, I'll try it with this one show and see what happens. And the stipulation was that I still got to be in the show, because if I wasn't in the show, like, why would I do it? And the first few productions were really rough. I was very young. I didn't know how to deal with the stress. I wasn't good at delegating. I wasn't good at talking to people when I was stressed out. I would kind of be horrified if some of those people, like, were asked about me today, who haven't seen my evolution, because I probably wasn't very pleasant to be around. Well, not probably, I definitely wasn't pleasant to be around. But it was the most invaluable decision I made in my life, to learn how to be a producer and to learn how to nurture a script through development and how to break it down in terms of a budget and a production schedule and all of those things. So those are skills that I can teach people who consult with me. I've also been a producer for hire for many years because I've developed those skills over time. And I realized by doing something I never thought I would do or never wanted to do, I realized, number one, I'm really good at it. I'm a really good producer. And number two, I actually enjoy it. I enjoy the process of figuring out the puzzle of how to make these productions happen, because there's so many moving pieces and different teams of people, and there's different priorities at different stages of the production. And that's a really exciting, almost math problem for me. I was kind of a math nerd in school. So it became a huge asset.
Jennifer, I love the fact that you are candid about something you're really good at. Why not? Why aren't more people saying, you know what, I am good at XYZ, instead of, well, I'm okay, when they know, and you know that you're really good at producing. So kudos to you for being able to say that.
Took me a long time to be able to say things like that. But, you know, if you're not going to be your biggest cheerleader, you can't expect anybody else to toot your horn for you. That's what I've learned.
especially in an industry that's so competitive that you can easily get overlooked and left behind. And you've taken a very different approach, and now you're helping other people to do the same thing. So I think that's tremendous. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and have more conversations with Jennifer Lieberman. So do stay with us. And after the break, Jennifer, we can go into any area that you want. I'd love to talk about your work as a writer as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Let's take a look at the Earthshot Prize, and we'll be right back.
Ours is a world of wonder. Every day it reminds us of its beauty. It touches us, teaches us, and astounds us. But it also warns us that what we throw away does not go away. That higher temperatures mean a lot more than longer summers. That we can no longer take life as we know it for granted. We are at a unique stage in our history. Never before have we had such an awareness of what we are doing to the planet. And never before have we had the power to do something about that.
that inspires you and gives you the insights for what it is that you actually put onto paper or into the digital world?
Yeah, it's usually inspired from my life experience, whether it's people that I meet and stories that I'm told, or just things that I was grappling with in my own life and wanted to explore on paper. Sometimes we can figure out solutions in an imaginary setting that can help us with our real lives. But I started writing, this is a cute little story. I started writing when I was about 8 years old because I was in love with Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. So as a clever little 8-year-old, I thought, well, I can write scripts where I'm a student at the school and I get to be his girlfriend. And that's literally how my writing kind of began. I imagined these worlds that I wanted to live in and write myself into them. And then, of course, as I grew up a little bit, I was able to start creating my own worlds and my own characters. And I didn't really have to lend from movies or TV shows that I used to watch. And that's how it started. And I started writing screenplays And then, so by the time I did my one-woman show, I believe I had 4 feature-length screenplays written, a couple of little one-act plays that I had workshopped in acting classes and done as showcase pieces on stage. But I never really executed anything in a professional manner. At this point, I had been producing for other people for several years because I started quite young, producing for that theater company in New York. But it was several years later that I developed this one-woman show. But that actually gave me the confidence to keep going and doing my own stuff. And in terms of writing, I wrote a web series with a writing partner. She called me one day. She was like, "Hey, my husband bought me this cool camera. Let's write like a 5-minute little short script and shoot it." And we sat down and we came up with this 6-episode web series that we didn't expect, but we loved the idea and did it super, super low budget. And it was a complete commercial failure, but till this day, one of the most proudest things I've ever done. And I had the most fun doing that. It's probably the most fun I've ever had in my life working on that project. And then I just kind of kept going from there. And I was like, I can keep doing these things on a small scale. And that's another thing that I like to share, is that I am so fulfilled doing these small little projects. It doesn't have to be a huge blockbuster movie or a Spielberg film or a Broadway show in order to be fulfilled creatively. You can do things on a small scale, and then the next one gets a little bigger, and the next one gets a little bigger. I eventually, 2 of my films screened at the Cannes Film Festival Métrage. That's the biggest and most prestigious film festival in the world. I got to go to the south of France twice. So, you know, everything starts with that first step. And I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent.
No, please continue. Go ahead.
But this is kind of what shaped me. So the one-woman show, after I won an award in New York, people also suggested to adapt it into a novel. So I was working on this novel as I was doing these short films, and as I got to go to Cannes, and as I moved forward with these other productions, especially as a creative, a lot of times you kind of have to give attention. I compare it to like cooking a feast, and you have several pots on the stove, but not every pot needs the attention for the next step of the recipe at the same time. So I'll have several pots simmering, and after doing a couple drafts of the novel that I adapted the one-woman show into, I needed to let it breathe. And it's like, okay, let's go do this short film right now and give it a break for a few months or a year. So there's always several pots on the stove or irons on the fire, however you'd like to call it. But I also realized the big thing with writing the novel that was new, I never thought I would write a book. I feel like all of my success is a series of, I never thought I would do this. I never thought I would do that. I never thought I would do that, but I did it anyway. And it led to some sort of success or door opening. So once again, I'm just gonna repeat this. Don't talk yourselves out of things so much. Talk yourselves into things. More is going to happen from talking yourself into something than talking yourself out of it. So I kept working on the book, and I did give up on it several times. A lot of rejection from traditional publishing or agents, or hiring the wrong editor who shot me down so much I couldn't look at the manuscript for 2 years. But eventually I pushed through, and it was a friend of mine who just encouraged me to get to the finish line and self-publish it and not worry about being successful. Just worry about finishing it. Because that's another thing too, I feel like as creatives, it's like every script that I've written that never got made is like another like lonely project, that got abandoned, so to speak. But with a book, you could just self-publish it and it's done. You don't have to raise hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars and put a whole crew together and then film the movie and then edit it and do sound and score and then get it into festivals and find distribution. Like with theatrical writing, whether it's a script for a movie or a play, that's step one of a 30 to 50 step process. Whereas the book, sure, there's many steps after writing it. You have to go through editors and proofreading, or at least you should, which I learned my lesson on that. I couldn't understand why no publishers were like interested. And it's like, oh, maybe you should have had a proofreader before you sent it to them. But it was all a learning experience over several years. And then eventually, I did self-publish the book and I made it to the finish line. And that was a whole other journey.
Jennifer, it sounds like a lot of what you're sharing is curiosity. You have curiosity to learn new things and experience new things. And I think if we think about children, how children are so curious, and until someone says, you can't do that, stop doing that, they still continue to be curious. So as adults, we seem to shut down that part of ourselves to get into this robotic mode where we wake up and do the same thing, go to work and do the same thing, and then it all starts over again. So what would you say to our audience to be able to get that childlike essence, that curiosity back to propel them to move forward?
I love that you brought up the comparison to a child, because I talk about this all the time. When we're a child and we're learning something new or we're trying something new, we expect to fail and we expect to be bad at it. We don't expect to be able to stand up our first try, or we don't even have the cognition to compute that we're going to fall or what's going to happen. All we know is that, we want to be upright and we keep trying and we'll fall on our butt 100 times before we actually get stable on our 2 feet. And then when we take our first steps, we fall. And then when we first go to, whether it's a ballet class or a soccer game or a martial arts class, we don't expect to be good right off the bat. And I think once we hit a certain age, we're proficient at so many things in our lives that we just expect that we're going to be good at it at our first try. Like, well, I'm a smart person and I have a degree from here. And, why wouldn't it be good the first time? And anytime you do something new, you're not going to be good at it the first time. Even baking a cake, if it's the first time you're doing that recipe. And I think a lot of people during the pandemic became amateur bakers or amateur chefs. And it doesn't matter how good the recipe is or how perfectly you follow the YouTube video. It's going to take you a while to perfect these things. And I feel like as adults, we have a fear of failure. We have a fear of being bad at something. And I think I've just embraced it. And I think my desire to be successful has always been able to override the fear of not being good enough. And, well, I'll figure it out as I go. Well, I guess I'll have to learn this new skill. Like, I've built all my websites. I'm not a web designer. I'm not a graphic designer, but I've figured it out. They say necessity is the mother of invention. And when you want something bad enough, and that's the other thing, if you don't want it, then don't worry about it. But if you want it bad enough, find a way to make it happen. And it's okay if you're bad for a little bit first. I'm still, I'll use the example of the last play that I did before the pandemic. There was a rehearsal where I just couldn't get to the point where the director wanted me to be. And I started crying in front of everybody. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I suck. I'm sorry I'm wasting rehearsal time because I just can't get this right. And I really had this instinct like, wow, I should step away from this production because I am not good enough. I can't deliver what the director wants. And the director was like, no, you're good. You've got this. Don't worry about it. Like, that's why we have rehearsal. And that was, you know, that was another learning, because I had been a professional actor for a certain amount of time, you know, and every other rehearsal, every other thing he wanted me to do, I was able to nail pretty quickly. But then there was a really tough scene and I couldn't nail it the first time. And it really threw me. But then you know, and then I went home and I had to remind myself, wait a second, like, you're not going to get it the first try, and that's okay, as long as you get it by the time the play opens.
And the fact that that director encouraged you and lifted you up is so important, because we have people who put us down and put us in a box, and they expect it to be done the first time, or else they say, bye, we don't want you. So tell us how you work with people, how you in your process of helping people, what does that engagement look like?
I am always super, super, super encouraging, and being a creative myself and understanding the level of sensitivity. I was talking to a producer a couple days ago, and basically he was kind of joking about anytime he reads a script, the only feedback the writer wants is, it was amazing. And anything short of it was amazing, there's going to be an emotional reaction from the writer. But that doesn't mean that the script doesn't have the potential to be amazing. It's a collaboration and it's a process. And I'm usually extremely gentle, and I don't like to give a whole bunch of negative feedback at once. I kind of have to pick and choose my battles of, okay, let's figure out what's working. I try to be more curious and ask questions than make statements, because when you ask a question, you kind of challenge the creative person to come up with an answer, as opposed to kind of reprimanding them. Well, it doesn't do this, or it doesn't say this, or, you know, you're missing this. Asking them, yeah, I'm just kind of curious, you know, this piece right here, like, I'm not clear on, did you leave that out for a reason? And asking them that, because a lot of times when we're writing, we know what we want to do, we know what we want to say, we know what we want to come across. But just because our head is filled with this story doesn't mean that we put all the details and nuance down on the page. So I just try to be very, very gentle and encouraging. And I've gotten scripts that I literally thought were terrible. And because I took a really gentle and nurturing approach, I've been able to help writers turn things around. And that same particular script has won several screenwriting awards at this point. But there was just a lot in this writer's head that didn't come out onto the page. So instead of reprimanding or being derogatory, I was just very curious and kept asking questions that kind of unlocked the portal of getting these things onto the page.
Excellent. Thank you. And I think this, to me, makes me think of the fact that as creatives, or even as entrepreneurs, we have to do so much ourselves, but at some point we have to reach out for help, because we don't know everything that we don't know. We do get stuck. We do get hung up. We do see things in a tunnel. And when we work with experts like you, it's a different perspective to help illuminate other areas that we might not be able to bring out ourselves.
Yes, definitely. And collaboration is important in any field that you're in, and bouncing ideas off of each other and being open. Even when I have a script, I am so open. If I'm working with actors or a director or a different producer, I'm so open to, if they have a suggestion that's going to make it better, why wouldn't I want to make it better? And part of the most exciting part of the collaboration process is when people can take my work to the next level and bring things to it that I never imagined as the writer. Like, that's the most exciting thing for me.
Yes. And also, would you agree that when we put our ego aside and we lead with our heart, that's when the magic really can happen. So instead of being steadfast saying, this is the way it has to be done, I know what's right, it's almost like, actually, I don't know what's right. And I really want to hear what you have to say because I respect you and I want to collaborate with you.
Definitely need an open heart and an open mind. But at that, on that same token, you have to have conviction and know where you're going. Like, you know, if somebody's starting a new business and they want to start, you know, let's say they want to start like an Italian restaurant, and somebody comes in and it's like, oh, but we should also have, you know, some Pan Asian, and we should have some of this and some of that. Sometimes too many ideas or cooks in the kitchen can ruin a project. I've gotten notes on scripts where it's literally one person will tell me that this is, you know, this character is written really well and all the characters need to be as fleshed out as this one. And then the next person who reads it says, well, this character is really underdeveloped and I want to know more about them. So that's the other thing too. It's like, you have to have an open heart. You have to have an open mind, but you still have to have the conviction to stick to your guns and take the feedback that's helpful, but also be confident that you know where you need to go with it. And it's the feedback is either going to be complimentary or it's going to convolute what you're trying to do. And being able to discern between the two is a skill that develops over time.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. We're at the end of our show, sadly, but I would love for you to give your contact information. Who would you like to reach out to you, and what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So the best way to get in touch with me, my website is jenniferliebermanactor.com. And there's links there to get to my consulting business, Make Your Own Break, and to get to all of my books. So that's a great one. And then on social media, it's the @ and then I am Jen Lieberman. And that's the same handle for all of my social media. So I am Jen Lieberman. And thank you so much, Dr. JACALYN. This has been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. And you're welcome to come back on any of our 27 other shows that you feel might resonate with you. And we have a film and music show, which is coming up right after this. So business show, just go to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and book in for any show you'd like to.
Thank you so much. I would love to come back and chat. This has been a pleasure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'll be in touch and I'll share with you where everyone can find the show.
Excellent. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye. Thank you to each and every one of you who are watching or listening on the live or on the replay. As I say all the time, it is such a gift to be able to have this platform and hear stories like Jennifer's to help uplift other people. I know there are people out there right now who are struggling, who are sad, who are angry, who are lost, but you're not alone. You are not alone. We've all been there in one way or another. And so I welcome you to bring your story here so that you can share it with the world and do each of our part in helping to provide education, inspiration, and hope to our global humanity. So thank you again for being here. Our next show is the Film and Music Show with my co-host joining us from London. Her name is Madeline Chan, followed by The Wise Ones with my co-host, Mr. Red O'Loughlin, who is in the great state of Texas. And then finally, rounding out the day with our Talking Heads episode, which belongs to Red O'Loughlin. All right, thank you again. I do have just a couple of quick announcements I want to make. We have added some new shows, and I just want to make you aware of them. The first one is a tribute to how I started out on the radio. The name of my radio show out of New York was Rapping with Dr. JACALYN, and I got it trademarked. And then as our platform grew and grew, I kind of just put it aside. So it's coming back. The new show is Rapping with Dr. JACALYN, a show about nothing. What does this mean? If any of you are familiar with a major sitcom that was on, I think, for 10 years, it was a show about nothing. So this is your opportunity to book in, and it's just the two of us without any script, without any topic. We're just going to sit and have an authentic conversation. Our next new show is The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor. This is based on the book that I am writing. It's one of 7 series, and all of the characters on the book cover represent real people who are elevated listeners. They've taken my listening program and become certified, and together we are teaching children and their parents how to listen at an elevated level. Okay, we also have Secrets to Timeless Beauty with my co-host Katrina Valenti from Dubai. And of course, we have our women's show, A Woman's Prerogative. We have women from all over the world who are on a panel, and we discuss all kinds of issues, sexuality, stem cells, homemaking, you name it, and we're discussing it. We also have What's Trending with Kathy Fulton. We have Pet Psychic Amina, Loving Longevity with Annie Bush, Global Homes and Gardens, The United Kitchens with celebrity chef Ricky McKenna, Adversity to Awesome, The Power of Etiquette and Manners with Philip Sykes, and we have Authentic Achievements with Kim Adele Randall. We also have Aging Gracefully with Humor with Kathy Fulton. And of course, we have our women's show. We have our men's show, Wild at Heart, Real, Authentic, and Uncut with Roland Friedel. The Wise Ones, which I mentioned, is coming up with Red O'Loughlin. And we have our business talk show with Mr. Al Cini, who's been here with me since the beginning. We just celebrated 100 shows on the business talk show. And we also have my show, which is The Listening Mentor, where I share role plays, and people watch these role plays to see behavior that's ineffective when we're communicating with each other. How can we change that? We have our other show, Leadership of the Heart, with Mariska Duprier from New Zealand. And we have the United Kingdom News and Culture with our 3 expert correspondents from the UK. We have our Talking Heads panel, which consists of some of our expert talking heads. And of course, our show coming up right after this is the Film and Music Show. So my last show, I just want to reference, I can't go through all of them, but this is a new show coming out. It's called Who's Listening Game Show. And this is a competition between my team of people who are certified elevated listeners to see how well they are actually listening when they're live on the TV and radio. So I challenge people to really tap into their listening skills and confirm that they have really earned their certification as an elevated listener. If you have an idea for a show, if you'd like to have your own show, if you'd like to join our team, if you'd like to have a show that has nothing to do with USA Global TV and radio, please do contact me. You can find me on my websites, either usaglobaltv.com or drjacalyn.com. Thank you for listening. We'll be back shortly with the Film and Music Show. Bye for now. Thanks, Jennifer.